So it's a process. A lot of people are very impatient when it comes to marketing. They want to see immediate results, immediate gratification. Marketing is a marathon. It is not a sprint. There's a lot of frameworks out there, but the simplest one is P.A.S. Problem, agitate, solution, right? So you talk about a problem that they have and don't want. You agitate it, right? You make it worse, and then you offer them a solution to solve that problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is part 2 of our talk with Tim Fitzpatrick, the founder of Rialto Marketing. If you haven't watched or listened to the first part of our talk, click that little button up there in the top right or check down the description for that talk. Today, we're going to get a little tactical and we're going to expand on this hero's journey. Here we go.
To be in the hero's shoes, which is why you want your business to be positioned as the guide.
Right.
The guide has a plan. The guide knows exactly what the hero needs to do to solve their problem. So that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, I mean, when I first heard that, I mean, because, Donald Miller, he's been around for a while. In fact, I was telling you earlier, I've got one of his earliest books, Blue Like Jazz, which actually got made into a movie. I mean, this was, 10, 15 years ago, And so, I mean, I've known about Donald for a long time and followed his. And then when this came, I was like, wow. And I loved that story discussion but you brought up a key point there. And that was how we wrongfully assume where I, as a business, fit into the story. And that is the hero versus the guide. And so when you're working with clients, I mean, what's the conversation like when you kind of point out, hey, look, you're not the hero of this story. Your customer, your client is. You're the guide walking them through their experience. I mean, how does that process go? And do you feel like there's businesses who, number one, either it's a light bulb, I didn't realize this, or number two, no, I want to be the hero. I mean, what do you feel like is what you kind of run into a lot?
The great thing about storytelling, I honestly can tell you, I have never walked somebody through what we just talked about and had them go, no, I want to be the hero.
Yeah.
They get it because it's honestly, it's not easy, right? It does take some work to go through this process, but it is simple. It's a very simple process for us to all understand because we're all familiar with stories.
Right.
I can walk somebody through, a lot of times what I do is just walk them through my favorite story, or my favorite movie. One of my favorite movies is the original Point Break, okay, with Keanu Reeves and Gary Busey.
Yeah.
So, for people that don't know that, right, it's like Keanu Reeves is the main character. He's a green FBI agent. The problem in the story is there's the ex-presidents, they're bank robbers, robbing banks in Southern California. The guide is Gary Busey. He's the seasoned FBI agent, partner for Keanu Reeves. He's been there, done that. And he says, look, the plan here is I believe the ex-presidents are surfers. You need to learn how to surf, and then you're going to meet them and infiltrate this band of bank robbers. So he calls them to action and says, Keanu, go learn how to surf so that we avoid failure and reach success, right? Failure is the ex-presidents get off with all the money, and success is we catch them.
Yeah.
That's the basic framework of a story, of the hero's journey.
And actually, when I look at a lot of marketing material, and I feel like, especially, I mean, let's use the pandemic as an example. I see so many commercials and I hear so many things on the radio about, look at all the great things we're doing to make sure, that we're safe and all this kind of stuff. But I think it completely misses the opportunity to show, yes, we're doing these things, but this is how it affects you. I mean, again, I think businesses today are really so focused on showing themselves as the heroes. And I think that's a huge missing opportunity for them. So again, when you're working with these businesses, okay, from your point of view as as that marketing coach, that guru, you're really focused on 2 levels deep. You're not focused on your client, you're focused on their customers, because they're their customers, your clients. This gets confusing really fast.
Yes.
Sorry. There's a second cousin and roommate somewhere here, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, like your clients are really, those are the heroes that we're trying to portray for your clients. So, I mean, what do you see, especially in marketing and sales, does just completely need to be revamped in sales pitch, those 30-second elevator things? I mean, when you break it down tactically like that, what needs to change?
The simplest way to break that down, Dustin, is we need to focus and talk about their problems and the results that they're looking for.
Okay.
Those are the two things that are going to gain your prospect's interest and their attention. That's it. And we only talk about ourselves enough to establish ourselves as the guide.
Right.
That's it. So we're always, the way it was explained to me at one point, which always just made sense to me, was we need to talk about the problems they have and don't want, and or we need to talk about the results they want and don't have.
Yeah.
That's it. Keep those two things in mind and start to think about, right? A lot of people, when we work with messaging, they're like, oh my gosh, but what if this isn't right, or we miss something here? Well, it's like, look, none of this stuff that we do from a marketing standpoint is set in stone. It's not like we're laying concrete here, but we need to start with something, and then you need to get out there and you need to use it and test it. And as you use it and start to get feedback, you're like, oh, that message or that benefit didn't really land as much as I thought it might.
Right.
But here's the feedback I'm getting. We're going to make this tweak. So it goes back to one of the things you first touched on, like nothing's going to be perfect. We got to get it down on paper. We got to start using it consistently, get feedback, and we can make course corrections. It's the small course corrections over time that yield exponential improvement.
It's awesome. I mean, it's that 1% every day, just trying to get better. Because like I said, if I'm just waiting for that one perfect marketing thing and I'm doing it once a quarter, I have nothing to gauge it off of, because a quarter shifts and everything changes with it. So, there's a lot of different metrics out there. And, when I start talking about like the Yelp effect and the rule of 7, I mean, there's different things. I mean, rule of 7, I think, is probably one of the best known as far as marketing. And when I'm looking at this as a business owner, can you kind of break that down for us as far as what it is and really how that applies to my business?
So the marketing rule of 7, I always explain it this way. Some other people may explain it slightly different, but with marketing, they say that it takes at least 7 impressions for that message or that brand to start to resonate with people. Like, we are hit with so much information. There's information that we're just processing subconsciously. It takes at least 7 times for something to register with people. So one of the common objections or roadblocks that I get when we start to do messaging is people say, well, I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again. Well, it's like, yeah, that's the point. Because most people are not going to get it the first time.
Right.
So we need to we need to be consistent, and we need to be repetitive in what we're saying. It's totally okay to do that.
I mean, I feel like, when I'm listening to the radio and there's an ad for something, that's why they say the phone number 3 different times, because, 800-555-555, like, I could remember that maybe on the 3rd time I hear it. And so again, that kind of repetitive message. Now, when you're doing those, call it like a multi-touch campaign or whatever that may be for businesses, however they want to phrase it. I guess what would be like, not necessarily a good cadence, but I mean, again, I don't want to send the same blanket email 7 different times, right? Because now it's just spam. Now I just delete it. So I guess, is there certain layers that you want to put on there? Here's a nugget of information. I'm building off of this and I'm building off of that. I mean, kind of what's the best practice if we want to get a little tactical as far as how should those 7 touches be made, so to speak?
Yeah, so this is going to depend on where they are in the journey, or where they're coming in. I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, you don't want to send people the same 7 messages over and over again. Right. But for example, let's say I offer some type of lead magnet. Maybe it's a free checklist or a 5-day email course, something like that. Right. So let's say they come in because I'm offering something of value that's going to help them. And then once they opt in, they then are going to get a sequence of email messages over a set period of time. Those messages, look, how you set those up is gonna vary a little bit, and there is no one right way to do it. But typically, what you're focusing on there is, okay, they came in here. Now, what's the next thing I want them to do? You need to understand where you want them to go in the journey, and that's going to help dictate what those messages are going to say. But if they came in, I'm fulfilling, the first email I'm sending is, hey, thanks for opting into the XYZ cheat sheet. Here it is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Then I just want to do what I can to start to nurture and build that relationship. Hey, you opted into for our cheat sheet. Here's what you can expect from us. Boom, 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 right? I'm setting expectations. And then from there, my messages are all going to be about either adding value to them, continuing to serve them, overcoming objections that they may have, helping them understand like what we do, like how are we different? What's the paradigm shift here? And getting them to take another action. Okay. So like for me, for my business, when somebody opts into something free, the next logical step for us is one, we're going to build that relationship. But the next thing, if they're going to work with us, the next thing they're going to do is get a free consultation.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, it's almost like like if you're on YouTube, those end titles, whatever, lead you to the next video you need to watch, because YouTube wants you to be not just for one video, they want you to be on there for all day, you know? So is that kind of like you want to say, here's the free thing, here's the next thing you need, which will then come with a next thing, which will then lead to, you know, having a conversation.
Here's the other thing that's important to think about too, Dustin. You get, once they go through that, right? Let's say my email opt-in sequence that we just walked through is 7 days or 10 days.
Okay.
They say that, and it depends on the statistics, anywhere from 5 to 10% of your market is going to have an immediate need for what you do.
Okay.
So if that's the case, most people that go, a lot of the people that go into that opt-in are not going to be ready to take that next step. So if that's the case, and once they're done with that sequence, if I don't have another way to continue to nurture them and stay in front of them, well, then when they do have a need, they're not going to remember me.
Right.
So it's a process. A lot of people are very impatient when it comes to marketing. They want to see immediate results, immediate gratification. Marketing is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Okay. Yes, there are ways that you can get quicker results, but most of the things that you're doing are going to take time and you need to be consistent. So yeah, some people who go through the email sequence are going to sign up for a consultation, but a lot of them aren't. So what am I going to do to stay in front of them so that when they are ready, they think of me, right? For my business, you know, we're creating a lot of content. So we're letting people know about our content. We're doing marketing workshops each and every month. So we're staying in front of them that way. Hey, here's our next marketing workshop. Man, that may not be relevant for them right now, but guess what? When it is relevant, like, oh man, I've been thinking about that. Bam. You know, I can't tell you how many people I talked to that they opted in for something and it's a year later or 2 years later, and they reply to that email that I recently sent out. They're not sending me an email cold. They're replying to the email that I just sent saying, oh, hey, I was thinking about X, Y, and Z. Do you think that they would have messaged me if I had not been sending them those emails consistently over time? No, they wouldn't have no idea who the hell I am.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of times where, I mean, you know, social media nowadays, it's like, as soon as you connect with somebody, hey, here's my sales pitch. Like, dude, I just met you, bro. Like, what are you doing? So, I mean, like, you get that extreme, but then you get the other extreme, and that is like, you know, Dustin, I've known you, I've been connected to you for like 6 years. I had no idea you did this product or service. I've been looking for this for 3 years, you know, type thing. So, I mean, when it comes back to that, maybe getting a little more tactical as far as, you know, how do you make sure that your messaging is clear and engaging? I've heard like the 3x3x3, you know, it's like, no, they got to read it on their phone, no more than 3 paragraphs, 3 lines, 3 points. I mean, whatever. I mean, again, I know that every industry is different. Every buyer's different within every industry. I mean, if you have to give kind of, I guess, generalize a messaging topic a little bit more, and that is, I mean, what is clear and engaging in your mind? Is it pictures? Is it a GIF? Is it, I mean, colored font?
So let me take one step back, if it's okay. If you want your messaging to be clear and engaging, you need to get into the storytelling framework that we talked about.
And probably as soon as possible, right?
Sooner rather than later. Because like I said in the beginning, right, the fundamentals are the fuel behind the tactics. Any tactic can work. It's a matter of what fuel you're putting behind it. So you have to have a way, and look, storytelling is not the only way to create clear, engaging messaging, but it's the one that makes the most sense to me. And it's just simple for people to understand. But then from there, if you want to use a simple framework for messages so that they're clear and engaging, there's a lot of frameworks out there, but the simplest one is P.A.S. Problem, agitate, solution, right? So you talk about a problem that they have and don't want. You agitate it, right? You make it worse. Like, man, that's getting even itchier, right? I got an itch, but oh my God, it's spreading across my forearm. You're agitating it. And then you offer them a solution to solve that problem. Problem, agitate, solution is that is like time-tested copywriting framework. There are others, but that's one of the simplest ones for people to remember. So you talk about the problem, because guess what? The problem, when you highlight the problems people are experiencing that you can solve, that is the hook that brings them into the story. So we have to talk about the problem. Then you can agitate it a bit, and then you can go, hey, if you want to solve this, here's how you can do it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, like I said, if there is, I mean, everybody's looking for the next whatever product, right? But not everyone may need to have that new SaaS solution or whatever it may be at that time. So if I'm going there right with the solution, I don't need you. But if I could at least pull out a pain point, and I can kind of swim in that, previous job we called the price of nonconformance, the PONC, so where if I could find that piece, now, like I said, I could swim there for a little bit. I could agitate it. And then they're going to come to me probably before I bring to them, hey, what do you got for this? What's the ointment? What's the treatment for this?
Yes.
By the way, Tim, I've got a solution, love that. So I guess, when you start talking about going to, again, kind of going back to one of those 3 key points you have, and that is, where do we find the most value? Do you deal with clients that find hey, I never figured I'd be working in education. I never figured I'd be working with, concrete cement mixers. I mean, how do you deal with those clients who, didn't want to be in the market they're in, but have a great solution and are trying to branch out to other places, other markets with their solution? I mean, do you deal with that a lot as far as, I wasn't expecting to be here, but I'm successful. I don't want to lose it, but I want to branch into something that's more sexy, more attractive to me personally?
I mean, it does happen, right? I mean, our path as entrepreneurs is not a straight one. It's a winding road. So our businesses are constantly evolving, and our marketing needs to evolve with that. So yeah, if you're not getting out of your business what you want, then it is time to shift. And sometimes services can hit multiple markets. Sometimes they're geared very specifically towards a very, very niche market. So, depending on what situation a client's in, we need to look at that and start to think about, well, how universal is what you do, and can you adapt that and get into other markets? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's a no. And if it's no, and you want to get into another market, well, then what's a problem that market has that you can solve? And so you need to dig into that. I mean, look, I'll give you a generic example. I'm actually working with a client right now. It's a software company. They have 3 different software solutions. And one of them is a very, very specific niche market. Like nobody outside this niche market is going to need that software. So if they're in this market and they're like, oh my God, we don't want to work with these people, they have to abandon. They have to either abandon the product, or they have to find a way to adapt that product to another market, because it is so niche specific. Nobody outside of this market is going to see a need for that product.
Gotcha. And one of the things you kind of mentioned before that is, no entrepreneur's path is really linear, and I'd love to talk briefly about your previous example in entrepreneurship, had a very successful, is in the wholesale distribution industry, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You did that. I mean, it was growing. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, somebody wants to buy it. So I guess, when you're looking at things like that and dealing with businesses who are, or maybe have that on the horizon, like, hey, I have a succession plan in place. Here's our metrics we want to hit. I mean, are you seeing that in today's market as far as business who are either preparing for it, whether it's, on a 5-year time plan, whatever? I mean, what do you feel like is the market right now for those type of businesses who are looking to sell? I mean, are you dealing with that at all?
Oh, Dustin, I think that market always exists.
Yeah.
There's always opportunity in any market.
Mm.
Some business owners they're not worried about that,
Yeah.
right? They're not even thinking about that. Frankly, when I got into the distribution business, that was honestly the last thing from my mind, and I did not start the company. My dad had been an entrepreneur for a long time. He was a partner in the distribution company. I ended up getting involved,
Okay.
staying on.
Mm.
And so I was there very early on, but we never, in the beginning, that wasn't even on our timeline.
Yeah.
But as the business evolved and as we started partnering with other companies, that became a very real possibility.
Mm.
But, here's the thing, if you do not plan to sell your business, you're not going to maximize
Right.
the opportunity.
Mm.
Like, you can't just wake up today and go, you know what, I think I'm going to sell my business today. Unless you are in an optimal situation, you are most likely going to be totally unprepared.
Right.
Most small businesses are very owner dependent.
Yep.
Owner dependent is not scalable.
Mm-hmm.
It means if they pull you out of the business, stuff falls apart. Nobody wants to buy that. So you have to start putting systems in place. You have to start pulling yourself out of processes so that the business can run without you. A lot of business owners want to maximize their income.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But when they pull out everything so that they're reducing profit, that does not help maximize your sale. And by the way, I am not an accountant and I'm not an attorney. So, I'm just telling you this based on my experience, but please don't take it as expertise. But when you sell your business, it's usually a multiple of profit.
Right. Mm.
If you are pulling everything out because you want to pay yourself as much as possible and you don't have any profit, you're going to have a multiple of 0, which is not a lot.
No, not at all. I think it's always 0. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. It's always 0. Yeah.
Well, Tim, I mean, this has been awesome. Do you want to be respectful of your time? I'm sure there's a lot of questions that I did not ask, but I mean, there's a ton of them. But I mean, what is one thing that I did not ask today that you really feel that business owners, leaders in their market, whatever the case may be, one thing that I did not ask that they should really know about marketing and the best way to position themselves, their business, or even their department within an organization? What's the best thing that they can do?
So Dustin, I'm going to take this back to the fundamentals. So one of the questions I get all the time is, where should I focus my marketing efforts right now? That is going to depend on where you're at and where you want to go. But I'm going to give you a few places to start that I think might really help the audience. One is the fundamentals. Like, if you don't know your target market well and you don't have clear, engaging messaging, you need to start there. Because again, without it, you got a car, but you got no fuel.
Right.
You have to have that plan in place. And from there, your website, because everything you do from a marketing standpoint drives people back to your website. So if it's not right, it is going to impact your return. And then the last place to start, I touched on earlier, what's already working.
Okay.
Go back to what's already working. What can you do more of? And what gaps can you fill to get better results? You will get much quicker results by focusing on that than anything else.
Awesome.
So that's a very generalized answer, but it's a great place for most people to start.
Well, Tim, and one thing I really do love is a lot of the things you just point out there. I mean, you could take it at the organization corporate level, but you could even do this, if I may a section leader, department leader within an organization myself. I mean, again, go back to the fundamentals, clear and engaging messaging. Even if I'm changing the paid time off policy from an HR standpoint, that's very important. How are you going to market it? What's the plan in place? So again, one thing I love about marketing, and really a lot of things you point out here, it's not specific just to growing revenue. It's applicable to so many different levels. Tim, I mean, this has been awesome. I really do appreciate it. Whether you're a business owner or, again, a person in a department type of leadership, whatever that may be, they want to reach out to you. What's the best way to do that, Tim?
I'll give them two places. First is our website, which is rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com. Second thing, we have a 90-day marketing plan kit. Awesome. If your audience wants that, they can go to growthmarketingplan.com, growthmarketingplan.com. And our marketing plan kit is there. It's all the downloads and the tools they need to get started. There's a walkthrough video. There's the 90-day marketing plan templates that we use, some samples so they can kind of just plug and play and get started with the plan. Remember, no plan is going to be perfect, but you just got to put a plan in place and start executing.
That's awesome. Tim, again, this has been phenomenal. I got about a whole page of notes over here. Hopefully typing wasn't too loud, but Tim, this has been awesome. And I really do want to just say thank you so much for walking our audience through today. Just number one, how marketing definitely ain't easy, but it's worth it. And I think you've got an awesome framework and foundation here that should bring some huge results for our team. Listen, Tim, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a true pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, sir.